Hey everyone, and welcome to Ramblin' Reviews, where we analyze different types of media and or their cultural relevance. My name is Christian, and this is Spider-Man in Strange Tales Annual number 2. Now, I want to be clear about how I'm going about this kind of thing. This is a crossover story. This is a story that is going to feature both Spider-Man and the Human Torch, as you can see from the cover there. But there are a lot of comics, and the purpose of these Ramblin' Reviews, these analyses, is to focus on a specific character, a specific franchise, whatever it is, and go through everything that involves that character or that franchise. So, and from if it's something that they just have a cameo in, or something that they just have anything like that, we're not focusing on the entire thing. We're only focusing on the parts that character or that franchise or whatever specifically are in. We will be doing the same thing with Human Torch later when we discuss the Fantastic Four specifically. We'll be doing the same kind of thing for all kinds of different appearances that characters will make in all kinds of different media, because that's the point. We will go through the entirety of this comic, covering both Spider-Man and Human Torch's sides, if you will, at some point in the future as well. But for the time being, this specifically is Spider-Man in Strange Tales Annual number 2. And one of the reasons I want to mention that as well is a lot of comics like this, and they still do this, well, they don't really do this much anymore, but a lot of comics, especially back in the day, would be things like this, where they would have multiple smaller stories within them. For example, Batman, Superman, these things started in issues called, well, Batman started in Detective Comics, but while his story is a story in that thing, that's not the entirety of Detective Comics, like the entirety of that issue. There are other issues. And this is even true for the Amazing Fantasy 15 as well, if I remember correctly. The only reason I didn't do it for that is because A, I didn't think about it for this kind of thing, and B, it's like, it doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Specifically, the story that we're covering for this is Human Torch on the trail of the Amazing Spider-Man. Again, the parts with Spider-Man specifically. And I do want to mention as well that this is a story that was, once again, this was written by Stan Lee and drawn by Jack Kirby. So this is we're going to be seeing a very different art style for Spider-Man than we're used to in his original comics. And I do want to point out how, once again, Jack Kirby, not once again for Jack Kirby, but once again, we have Spider-Man here on the cover this time, with no spider symbol on the front of his chest. Like, what is going on here? I don't know. But in any case, I wanted to make it really clear what the purpose of this kind of comic is, or this kind of review is. We are focusing specifically on Spider-Man, and we'll still be discussing events that affect the character, but we're not going into like the Human Torch's side of this and what happens before, and all. We're not doing that. Those will be their own things later, but I just want to be clear about what this kind of thing is. But in any case, so from Spidey's perspective, he finds that he is framed for stealing a priceless painting. Specifically, it's a newly acquired Da Vinci masterpiece. Now, it's not the Mona Lisa or anything like that, but it's a pretty big deal. What it is specifically doesn't matter. The point is, a painting is stolen, and everybody, of course, thinks that it's Spider-Man. And we have Spider-Man kind of pondering the whole thing and figuring out how he's going to, prove his innocence and everything here. For some reason, Spidey thinks that working with the Human Torch is going to be a good way to prove his innocence. I don't know if it's because of smaller adventures they've kind of had in the past, or what the deal. In my opinion, this is really just a way for Stan to have gotten two of his big superheroes to work together. But in any case, they Spidey decides to work with the Torch and meet him where he lives in Glenville. Which, by the way, why people just know where the Fantastic Four live and like the Baxter Building is one thing, but knowing where like individually they live is just insane to me. However, this was a time where people's addresses and stuff used to be in the phone book, so everybody was just doxing themselves all the time. But in any case, that's all neither here nor there. The point is, Spider-Man shows up to Johnny Storm and Sue's house. Sue, of course, being his sister. And as he's getting there, he learns that Sue is leaving to go into town. She's telling Johnny, she's like, I'm going to go into town to meet with Reed and Ben. Are you going to be okay on your own? He's like, yeah, I'm going to be fine, sis. Like, quit worrying about me. I'm going to be all right. And we have, Spidey showing up. Whereas Torch actually sees Spidey from outside the window once he goes back home, or once he goes back inside the house. I mean to say, Spidey's like, listen, man, I just want to talk. But Torch is angry. He flames on. He goes to fight him and everything, and the two basically kind of fight all across the house, which is a pretty big and pretty nice house. But the two of them end up even fighting in the pool. Spidey kind of gets them into the pool where they're able to get out and keep fighting and everything. And like I said, they fight all across this really nice big house, and eventually end up outside where they're at this like construction area, and Spidey's able to use a cement mixer to blast Torch, holding him in place enough until he's able to get away for a while. And while Peter is away, he sneaks into a chemical lab. And we have this moment where he decides to use these ice crystals and mix them with his web fluid in order to make, well, a form of basically ice webbing so he can be more of a challenge against the Torch. Now, this is a moment that I really like. As much as I've discussed how I don't like the web shooters conceptually, this is a moment where he's using his web shooters, and we see him using his smarts, if you will, and everything to properly take down his enemy. I wouldn't even say the bad guy, because it's not the bad guy, but his enemy nonetheless, the person that he's fighting in this regard. So as Torch is flying around, looking for him, eventually kind of gives up, and Spidey actually tracks him back down and basically challenges him for round 2. The two of them fight for a while, kind of chasing as Torch kind of chases Spidey down across the street, if you will. Spidey traps Torch in a web made of ice and just tries to get him to listen. He's like, listen, I just want you to know I didn't steal the Da Vinci painting. And Torch is all like, what do you think, I was born yesterday? Think you can fool me, kind of thing? And Spidey's like, listen, if you're so arrogant and so pig-headed that you're not even going to listen to reason, I don't even know what I was doing bothering trying to work with you. Like, this is insane. I can't. It even leaves, Spidey leaves thinking like, I probably really like fucked that whole thing up, but I gotta figure out how to prove my innocence, and if Torch isn't gonna help me, I gotta figure something else out. And so we have this moment where later, however, Spider-Man sees a signal from Human Torch as he, writes out, Spider-Man, let's work together. And I really like this moment too, because this is a pretty cool thing I think about Torch's power, where he does a lot of times where he'll like sign the Fantastic Four logo in the sky or something of that nature. He'll sign all these different things, and I like this as a method of him, him doing this in order to reach, extend an olive branch in a way, and just be like, let's do this. Let's work together. And speaking of nice moments, now many fans of Spider-Man and or the Human Torch will be very familiar with the fact that they later become very good friends throughout the Marvel universe, if you will. They become like, I think they become best friends actually. Johnny Storm becomes Peter Parker's best friend, and vice versa. But we have their first meeting here, their first meeting as allies at the Empire State Building, where and the reason I bring this up is because this becomes the meeting place for the two of them to meet a lot of times in the future. But this is the first time that it happens, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty special. So the two of them discuss, and Human Torch essentially explains to Spidey, he's like, listen, I'm working with this guy named, this Inspector Rudd, who helped me develop a whole plan. The guy we're looking for is a criminal known as the Fox. Yes. And they're discussing this whole plan of action. Basically, the plan is to chase him down at a few different locations he's known to have potential hideouts at. And that's essentially their plan. Go to a few different hideouts, see if they can track him down, and see what they can do. The first place they check is the subway station, where an old lady asks Spidey to hold a bag for him, and he's even at first like, listen, I'm busy, but alright, fine. Out of the kindness of his heart, he does decide to hold the bag. Although as the bag sticks to his hand, so it got this like blue all over it, we find quickly that it wasn't an old lady, but rather one of the Fox's henchmen dressed up as an old lady who pulls a gun on Spidey, tries to kill him, but Torch immediately melts the gun. And, this is one of those moments that it's so, like, sci-fi, weird kind of, villain's got, like, the mask on of something else kind of thing. It's very, yeah, it's a rather strange type of thing, I would say. But it's, interesting. Spidey finds an entrance to one of the Fox's lairs under the tracks. Yes, one of them. And they go in, and of course they explore the place, but find that he's not there. He must have gotten away. And so Spidey suggests, he's like, we've run out of clues. All we can do now is explore the town and trust my spider sense. Once again, we have Spidey using his spider sense to try and find something he's looking for. I don't know how long this continues in the comics, but this idea of his spider sense basically being a compass is just extremely, extremely odd to me. It's not, I don't know, it's not the end of the world, but it's just odd. They come across what they refer to as an old Indian statue, which of course these days we refer to as a Native American statue, but in any case, Spidey's able to kind of move it a bit and find that there's another secret entrance here, but one of the Fox's mooks is already there and ready to attack. Spidey and Torch take down the people that have ambushed them and begin interrogating them, where the Fox's goons even tell Spidey and Torch, that guy, they say that rat deserted us and hightailed it to Central Park. So, he's all like, great. Well, Torch is like, well, great. How are we going to even find him? Spidey's like, are you forgetting spider sense? It's kind of my whole thing. So we have this little moment, and once again, we have this moment where once they get to the park, Peter uses his brains again because, of course, once they get to the park, Spidey uses his spider sense once again and is able to find the secret entrance to yet another one of Fox's lairs. Again, really don't know how I feel about this whole spider sense being used as a compass kind of thing, but it is what it is. They notice that he isn't there, so what are they doing? And by basically happenstance at this point, They find him, the fox that is, using like a paid telescope, which is just like a park, one of those park attractions. And once they catch him, once they get him, once they get to him, and they're like, "Hey, I want to ask you some questions, buddy." We have a moment, and this is one of those very hokey Silver Age comics type of moments where he activates these jet boots, these jets on his shoes, and just zips away, just like it just propels him. It's like jet boosted Heelys he's essentially on, or like roller skates under his shoes, and he's trying to get away, but Spider-Man catches him, and there's not much action here. This is nothing like what happened with Batman, Spider-Man, and Doctor Doom or anything. Very much the opposite. Instead, Spidey just catches him, pulls off this mask because again he's wearing a fake mask for some reason, and they're able to collect the painting that was stolen. Now we have this moment where the Human Torch finds the painting in the fake in the telescope thing, because it was fake. It was just there to hold the painting, and we have this nice little attention to detail where you can see that he has the ability to like only make certain parts of himself on fire, and we have this nice attention to detail where he's flaming off, if you will, or he's not flaming on his hand, so that he's able to hold on to the painting just fine. We have some kind of banter between Spidey and the Torch here, but that nice attention to detail I mentioned with his hand to hold the paper. That same attention to detail wasn't put into account when we see Torch's shoulder on the fox. Just it's got to be burning him. It's got to be like that's insane. But obviously that's just something they missed when doing the art. So it's. But yeah. In any case, this was the first team up between Spider-Man and Human Torch. And that is the end, of course, of Spider-Man in Strange Tales Annual number 2. I like how this was done for Spider-Man. I like how we got to see him using we got to see him using his smarts when making the ice webbing. We got to see him and Torch fighting together because of their their misunderstanding, which of course is very common with all these different kind of things, right? But we got to see them later then come together and work together and all these different things, and we'll see how that all goes with the issue as a whole, or the story as a whole at least, and we'll see how how that all goes from Torch's perspective specifically as well. But in any case, and then of course they teamed up together to take down a pretty small time crook. But I think this was really good and kind of shows those early signs of Peter and Johnny Storm working together in the time to come. We even have that iconic moment where they meet on the Empire State Building. First time they met on the Empire State Building. That's like a classic thing for them to meet on the Empire State Building as friends, to just talk, and Peter will get advice from him and all these different things. I know it was done in the 90s game, like the one for the PS1, the game that's just called Spider-Man for the PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, all that stuff. But yeah, no, like I said, overall, this little story here and Spider-Man's part in it, I think it's really good. So once again, I would of course recommend reading this if you get the chance. It's not a must read. I wouldn't put it as highly as like you got to read this. Like I would say you should, for especially the action and everything of the one with Doctor Doom, issue 5 that we just went over. But it's good in general. I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're trying to consume all content associated with Spider-Man as I am here. But in any case, As always, these are just my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Subscribe, ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like. And if not, I hope you find something to do like. Later, guys. Peace and love.